Happy Friday. Welcome in. Payoff Pitch, Action Network's MLB betting podcast. I'm your host, Brendan Glasheen, joined on this Friday morning by BJ Cunningham. We're getting you set for NLDS Game 5, Padres Dodgers tonight, just after 8 o'clock Eastern. We'll also do a preview of the ALDS Game 5, which will take place on Saturday night between the Tigers and the Guardians. There you go. So we're not here on weekends, but since we know what we have going on Saturday, we'll do a preview of Saturday's game. There is a line out there. We know Tarek Skubal's pitching for Detroit. And we'll figure out what the Guardians are going to do with their bullpen. But we'll start with Friday night's game, which is a massive game for us Padres futures bettors. We've been hammering this, that the company, I feel like the betting world, the betting community, not the betting world, that's strong, but the betting community, at least us at Action Network, love this Padres team. What a dud on Wednesday. Real dud. But here we are. Yu Darvish on the mound for San Diego. It's Yamamoto for the Dodgers. Padres are dogs, plus 124 tonight. Dodgers minus 146 on the money line. The total's at 8. First and foremost, what's the confidence level of BJ Cunningham with the Padres in a do or die game tonight?
If you had to give it out of 10, I would say I'm at like a 5 or a 6 maybe right now. It's what's worrying me, and we'll get into this, is that how successful the Dodgers were just going straight bullpen game and just playing matchups. That makes me a little worried that they're going to do the exact same thing here in Game 5 and have some success. So we'll see. But yeah, that was a dud on Wednesday. That was a deflating game because it was over for the first 3 innings. So yeah, we'll see what happens tonight, though.
The bullpen thing was really annoying because it was Ryan Brazier who got the start. They even worked in Kopech again, who's been good. Their bullpen's been good, right? It's nothing above average like the Padres have been, but their bullpen, I think, maybe a little underrated going into the series. Pretty ballsy call to go to the full bullpen game, but it worked. And when you have a lead, and the way the Padres or the way the Dodgers have been swinging the bat in the first couple of innings, Betts hit the home run. They add 2 more the following inning, add 2 more in the third. You get behind to this team, and Evan Abrams had that stat, our director of research and media. You guys have hit on this too, but the money line home teams in these MLB playoffs hitting it like 37%, not a great clip. That the crowd, and I give the Padres crowd credit. They stayed engaged in that game really until it got out of whack when it became 6-8 later on. They stayed pretty engaged in that game, but they used 8 pitchers, the Dodgers, in that game. The Padres had to use 7. Cease only gave him an inning and 2/3. So we'll start with the starting pitching matchup. Yamamoto had his struggles in game 1. Darvish has pitched in big games before. He was asked about this in his press conference yesterday about being in these spots before. He didn't really sound like that mattered all that much to him. Like it's kind of just a foggy memory of these bigger spots in terms of being in a big game. He pitched for the Dodgers, of course, before. Where are you at from a starting pitching standpoint in this game? If you don't want to play a side or a total, because the side, of course, you're hoping for your Padres futures to just move on.
So let's see. I start with side and total. So I know Zerillo has the Padres at plus 117 in this game. I'm at Padres plus 123. So there's really, I mean, if you break it down, I guess there's maybe a little bit of value on the Padres if you want to play them at plus 125. But as everybody already knows, we're so heavily invested in their futures that I'm not going to add more to it at this point. Total, I have it 7.8. I know Zerillo is right at 8 as well. So there's just really no value anywhere in terms of a side or a total. But I think what's going to happen with these starting pitchers is pretty interesting. Darvish was allowed to go 7 innings in game 2, and he was very, very good in that game too. But if you look at his stats through the order a third time, it gets pretty bad. He's at a 4.5 xFIP when he faced the order a third time through. And I cannot imagine in a game 5 with a day off the day before and the bullpen fully rested and fully available that he is actually going to see the order a third time through. So I like Darvish. You can still find a minus 140 on him under 4.5 strikeouts. Even in that 7 innings, he only had 3 strikeouts. And his K per nine rate is below 8 the first 2 times through the order. When he gets most of his strikeouts is actually the third time through the order because Darvish has so many different pitches that he throws and he can mix them all up and be very confusing. That's how he stifled the Dodgers in that first game. He utilized his slider and his sweeper quite often, and he was able to get a lot of the Dodgers hitters out with a lot of those breaking pitches and not expose his fastball and his sinker. So I think that, and then you go over to Yamamoto, who gave up 5 runs, only was allowed to go 3 innings in game 1. Flaherty's going to be available. The entire bullpen's going to be available. And with how much success they had playing matchups in game 4, I don't really see a scenario how Yamamoto's even going to see the order a second time through. I feel like he's going to see the order the first time through. That's going to be it. They'll go to Flaherty. And, Flaherty's numbers have taken a dip, as Sean has pointed out many times in these postseason, as his velocity is down. And then Flaherty will most likely be on a short leash, and then they're just going to go to their bullpen. It's game 5. Like, there's no resting. There's no, like, your season's on the line. So right. With how much success the Dodgers had with their bullpen in game 4, I think you can play basically all of the unders on props with Darvish and Yamamoto. Yamamoto's at 3.5 strikeouts right now. I mean, he has a high strikeout rate, but if he sees the order, I don't think he's seeing the order a second time through unless he's pitching like really, really good. And that leash is going to be so quick for him in game 5. So if you want to do like a massive save game parlay and you want to correlate Darvish and Yamamoto strikeouts and hits and earned runs, like all under, you can probably get a pretty big payout if these guys only last 1 or 2 innings. So that's the troublesome part of this game is like we don't know like how quick the leash is going to be on these guys. My guess is going to be that it's going to be very, very quick. I don't think Darvish is seeing the order third time through. A lot of managers, though, during this postseason, Brendan, have been heat checking. Like they feel like they have this plan in place of just like he's going to see the order, other than Tariq Skubal. Like seems like the plan in place for every pitcher is see the order 2 times through and then let's get him out of there. But pitchers have been pitching well, so they've just kind of been like, okay, let's just let him go a little bit longer and just see what happens. And I think that's what happened with Darvish. And they had a huge lead, obviously, in game 2, which played a part in him actually going 7 innings. So it's interesting. But the main bet that I'm making is Darvish under 4.5 strikeouts at -140. And I think I'm just going to play a massive same game parlay of all the Yamamoto and Darvish unders just correlated because I think that the leash is going to be very quick on both of these pitchers. And one other prop that I did like that I was looking at last night, Will Smith not to get a hit is at like +145. I know he had a homer in game 4. That's his only hit of the postseason so far. And he's very average against right-handed pitching, and they can just play matchups against him. And he can't hit breaking pitches. Like he's like at a 250 expected weighted on base average this season against breaking pitches, crushes fastballs. And I believe his home run was off a fastball as well. And with Darvish having 8 different pitches that he throws, like he has 2 different sliders, 2 different curveballs, he's just going to throw him breaking pitches. He's not going to be able to hit it. And obviously the Padres have plenty of good pitchers coming out of the pen that can throw breaking pitches. So that's kind of where I'm looking in this game, kind of more to the props market. I think with what's unknown about what these teams are going to do with their starting pitching, I think it makes it hard to bet a side or a total in this game. So I think if you correlate all the unders on Yamamoto and Darvish, I think that's a decent way to go about this game.
Another play from Sean Zerillo. You can find his write-up for this entire postseason, also for tonight's Game 5 and Game 5 tomorrow in the ALDS, actionnetwork.com, Action Network app, opening pitch. He's got Fernando Tatis over a half a walk over at DraftKings at +215. I'm not sure that number's still available at that price. But Tatis, even Machado, they had some good wood in game 4, but that was a Petco and the ball dies a bit and the weather drops, the temperature drops a bit. Is that something else you're looking at? Maybe from a hitter perspective, is there any angle here?
Yeah. So he's walked 3 times during this postseason. They obviously have been kind of pitching around him. The weather tonight in Dodger Stadium is going to be 72. The wind's going to start out at 7 miles an hour blowing out. It's going to kind of die down as the night gets deeper and deeper. But yeah, if they're in a tough situation, it's tough when Machado is behind Tatis in the order. or so it's kind of hard to intentionally walk him. So there's obviously that angle, but yeah, they have been pitching around him. He's got 3 walks during the postseason. So I mean, especially at 2-1, like, this isn't like Harper where it's like even money every game. Like at 2-1, that's a pretty decent price.
Yeah. Why is that the price?
Well, I'd assume that, I not looking into Tatis's
Did they put
numbers,
the ball
but
in play? Is that why the Padres don't strike out? Is that what it
yeah,
is?
from Tatis actually had his lowest walk rate of his career this season. Like he is somebody who consistently will swing outside the zone and chase certain pitches. Um, 7.3% walk rate. 2 years ago he was at 11%. So, and like I said, he's walked 3 times during this postseason, but the last 3 games against the Dodgers, he has not walked. So I'm not sure that there's going to be like a clear plan because there's so many good hitters around him to pitch around him, right? Like it's a little bit easier with Harper. Not saying, like the guys once you get beyond Harper are not as elite as him. So um yeah, it's a little bit tougher to actually like pitch around and do that Tatis. But again, it's 2-1, right? Like, you know, it's a pretty decent price for how good he's been hitting this postseason.
Okay, agreed. Very good. Anything else in this one? We want to move on.
Let's move on.
Let's move on. Yeah, we're sweating this thing out tonight.
Yeah.
Come on, pods. Come on.
Yeah.
Tigers Guardians game 5 is Saturday night, just after 8 o'clock Eastern as well. Tarek Skubal's on the mound. We know that. I've been looking. I don't think there's been an announcement yet from Cleveland as far as what their plan is to start game 5. I'm imagining it's going to be some sort of combination of bullpen guys, and they'll use starters if they have to.
Yeah. My guess would be again, they haven't put it out. My guess would be it would be Matthew Boyd for maybe 3 innings. Like that would be it. I know in game 2, again, Stephen Vogt heat checked it in game 2, and it was like very clear plan in place. He's going to see the order 2 times through, but he was pitching so well they let him see the top of the order the third time, and they almost ripped a double off of him. If you remember, Noel threw out the guy at second base, but and then Boyd came out immediately after that. So that would be my guess is what Cleveland's going to do from a side and total perspective. If it's the same matchup in game 2, they set the opening total at 6.5. Well, now we're down to 6. So I can't really play an under, especially being that low, even if Scooble is on the mound. I think the line is basically what it was. It's maybe I think Cleveland opened at plus 110 in that game, and now they're at plus 105. So I don't think there's much value in that aspect. What I will say is Scooble props are interesting because he is the one pitcher in this postseason that's given obviously the longest leash, and they're going to use him as long as they possibly can because he's the best pitcher in baseball right now. In that game, he was throwing a lot of fastballs. Like his changeup's his best pitch, but he didn't really use it that often. He was just throwing 98-mile-an-hour fastballs like in on Cleveland's hands, like consistently over and over and over again. And really only 1 inning he got into trouble. I think it was Rocchio hit a double off or hit a double. And then I think it was Quan got a base hit as well. And they had guys in first and second, if you remember, with 1 out, and he was in a little bit of trouble, and then they got a double play ball, and then that was it. But otherwise, Cleveland didn't really harm him that much. He only gave up 3 hits. He had 8 strikeouts. He threw close to 100 pitches. So, if you look at Scooble props, over 5.5 strikeouts is juiced pretty heavily, which I think line's probably right. Under 1.5 earned runs is like minus 130. I think that is kind of interesting on Scooble. Again, he's going to have a long leash here, but the way Cleveland's bats have been during this playoffs, I mean, they went 2 straight games completely scoreless. Like games 2 and 3, they didn't get a single run, and they didn't even. And if you watch those games, they didn't even come really that close to even getting a run. So I would back Scooble in this type of situation. Wouldn't really play. I don't think there's much value on the money line, but Scooble under 1.5 earned runs at minus 130 is pretty interesting to me. Again, Cleveland, I went and looked it up. Cleveland this season against left-handed fastballs of 97 miles per hour or faster, it has like a 250 expected weighted on base average, which is right around the league average. And again, Scooble was able to dominate with that pitch, and then he didn't even really use his best pitch, which was his changeup. So I think Scooble's got a great matchup here, and I would play more props correlated to him than the Tigers actually winning this game because, as you saw in that game too, with Matthew Boyd and a bullpen, the Tigers didn't really do that good of a job of getting to him. Class A had an uncharacteristic home run that he gave up at the end, but otherwise the Tigers weren't really threatening all game. So this game's back in Cleveland too. So obviously Cleveland's got the crowd on their side, but should be a really fun game, honestly. With Scooble on the mound in Game 5. So that's how kind of I'm looking to play it, but I don't think there's really much value on a side or a total here.
That time of year, it feels like it's rare to find anything on sides and totals.
Yeah, it's they opened it right around where kind of it was. They put the total down a little bit lower because I know a lot of guys played under 6.5 in Game 2. Well, now we're at 6 and it's like minus 120. So we can't. I was maybe looking at like if you can get over 6 at like plus 105 or plus 110 or better, like maybe. Or if this gets to 5.5, I would probably hit over 5.5 because that's just way too low. I think the last time we saw a 5, I remember this was, I think it was the COVID year, 2020. I think it was Cole versus Shane Bieber. And it was like a really cold night in Cleveland with the wind blowing in. And it went way over. I think Cole got blown up and it went way over the total. Or maybe it was Bieber. I can't remember which one. But yeah, if it gets to 5.5, I'll play the over.
Eric Scooble strikeout prop at 5.5. Choose to the over at
Yeah, and Cleveland doesn't really strike out that often. I know they struck out 8 times against him, but that's kind of uncharacteristic of them.
agreed. And you mentioned Matthew Boyd, he former Tiger for 8 years. He was good in game back on Monday. He was really good, 4 2/3 innings of scoreless baseball from him. Here's the stat that folks might want to know for these game fives. Teams are only 62 and 66 all time in the postseason when playing a winner take all game in their home ballpark. And that does include the Brewers' loss to the Mets in that game 3 wild card game, going back to last week. All right, man.
Yep.
I think that's it. I think we've got it covered. I mean, it's boring, no sides and totals, but I like I actually liked your energy. I was actually a bit more surprised that you were seeming a little more positive. You're not as negative as I thought. That might be a better way of
Oh,
putting
I mean, you kind of got to be positive in these situations, right? Like you got to have. I mean, I get it. Like
You're
you
a
want to.
positive guy.
I
Normally.
know. Well, I know you. I know that the betting community, and I get it. Like I've been there too, where it's just kind of like you want to prepare yourself for disappointment, right? Like if the Padres lose, I know a lot of people are negative because they're just like, oh, of course they were going to lose. But I'm hopeful that they can do it. One more thing before I'll go. I same game parlayed all the unders on strikeouts, hits, and earned runs with Darvish and Yamamoto, and it's about 16-1, which isn't bad. So
So
and
runs, hits, strikeouts.
runs, hits, and strikeouts, all the unders. Um, and if certain books will give you like a 50% boost on that, so you can probably get that up to over 20-1, honestly.
Seems too easy.
Yeah, I know. It seems too easy until Darvish Yamamoto just gives up like 5 hits and 5 runs in the first inning. So,
Hey, we'll be
but
okay if Darvish decides to shove like he
yeah, if
did.
he shoves, that's great. I'll be incredibly happy. But
Yeah.
but yeah, so there's a long shot for this game 5 if anybody wants to play it.
Okay. Excellent. BJ Cunningham, excellent work. You can find his other work, including ball, over in the Action Network app, actionnetwork.com. We were for a recorded payoff pitch on Monday. That'll be ALCS Game 1, NLCS Game 2, which would be it's going to be in Los Angeles or it's going to be in San Diego because either one of those teams will have home field against the Mets. And then we'll find out if it's Yankees Tigers or Yankees Guardians in the ALCS come Monday. Thank you, BJ, for BJ Cunningham, Brendan Glasheen. We hope to get Zerillo back behind the mic. You can find his written content. Again, opening pitch is up and available. He's doing it every day during the playoffs, even weekends. We're not recording payoff pitch on the weekends, but written content available. Action Network app, actionnetwork.com. Thanks for listening to Payoff Pitch. We are Action Network's MLB betting podcast. You all have a great weekend. Enjoy the baseball tonight. Go Padres.